Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sitting here today and talking to me. So I'm quite interested about yourself and your background, because you work with FDOT. So can you give me a little bit of a background on yourself and when you started working with the business, the government?
Sure. Well, I'm the son of a surveyor, so I got indoctrinated pretty early. Working with my father many years. I got licensed in 1997, did a lot of geodetic type work, nighttime Polaris observations, GPS in the 80s, that kind of thing. And I got into photogrammetry probably in the early 90s, working with Dr. Brown and some of his folks at GSI. And basically I enjoyed surveying and mapping, and it much to my father's chagrin. He wanted me to go on and do engineering or something else, but I just didn't want to stay inside. So, but I've enjoyed it very much. It kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You get to do high-tech stuff, but at the same time you get to get outside and see things. So I really enjoyed it. And I moved to Tallahassee in 2006 because I wanted to get back to surveying. I worked for some large engineering companies, and I kind of wanted to get back into a more of a survey-focused company, and started working there, worked there for 3 years, and then the bottom fell out of everything. And fortunately, a position opened up at FDOT and in the managing the aerial mapping section. So I was fortunate to get that position and started that in 2009. And then almost last year I got promoted to state surveyor. We went through a reorganization where surveying and mapping came out from under design, and it's now under civil integrated management, which is part of the Transportation Technology Office, which is part of strategic development. And this opened up a lot of things. Civil integrated management officer John Kraus is my boss, and the agency is treating data differently than it has traditionally. We're one of the agencies that collects a lot of geospatial data, and we use it in all facets of our mission. But quite frankly, it's been hard to manage it effectively. And one of the things this reorganization has done is let us focus on data as an asset and manage it as an asset. And also, too, more in the lines of we have a lot of infrastructure, and we need to manage the data about the infrastructure through the life of the asset. And so when we collect it going into planning, and then we collect more information as we go into design, and then we get more information as we do construction. You know, a lot of this information, if managed properly, can save us time, money, and issues later on. But managing that much data is very difficult, and we had to change some philosophies and also some of our infrastructure on how we deal with it.
How did you go about it in the business, the change, because it's a big thing, it's changing, especially in a government organization. What were some of the things that you did?
Well, we had a long history, and it's a cultural change. We had a long history in surveying and mapping since the 40s, and we had our first aircraft in the early 60s, and we did a lot of production, collection of orthophotography and aerial mapping in support of our mission. And over the years, as technology developed and some of the things that we were doing became more commonplace, we began to outsource those to consultants. And it just got to the point where it made more sense with all the technology that's changing, that for us to try to keep ahead of that was just, insurmountable. So we replaced our aircraft last year about this time in 2000. 17, and we essentially went from production to supporting the districts in remote sensing. And that allowed us, because we were spending such a focus on production, we weren't able to perform as much on what our true mission was, which is to support the districts and the agency in geospatial and remote sensing. We're able to bring a lot more tools to bear on projects because we now outsource that to consultants. And so it allowed us to do a lot of things that help us in our transition in civil and grade management, more so than we were able to do in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you find working with the different agencies and survey teams so when you outsource them?
Very rewarding. One of the things that we're able to do when working with consultants and other agencies is we get to see some cutting edge types of technologies that you don't, when you're in your daily grind or you're in a lot of traditional collection methods, you don't always get to stop and see what's happening in the industry. And today, with the industry changing so quickly, it's very important to try and see what's ahead so that you can prepare for it as it comes, especially in an agency that utilizes geospatial data so much as we do.
Is it very important for you guys then to look at the agencies and survey companies that you work with to see if they're innovating and they're looking at new stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have to do as our transition is, and this is a big challenge for us, is how do you, when you get out of the production arena, how do you maintain your expertise? And so we work very hard at training and working with consultants on projects, more so than in the past where typically you would hire someone and oversee it somewhat. But we find that one of the things that's very important if we're going to use data effectively, that data comes with a pedigree. We have to be assured that that pedigree is what we believe it is. So a lot of our roles have changed to quality assurance, managing data, evaluating that as it comes in. So a lot of the benefits that we get working with consultants is we get exposed to a lot of different tools. And each tool, whether it's a remote, whether it's a drone or whether it's an aerial manned aircraft or a vehicle collecting LiDAR, what have you, really boils down to using the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that we've working with consultants and learning with consultants and managing consultants, we learn a lot of what tools work best in what situation.
Yes, it's very powerful as well, internally as well as externally.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So take me back to the days when you came across TopoDOT and Ted and the team.
Yes, actually, I was still managing mobile surveying and mapping at the department. And John Kraus, who had this position, state surveyor, my predecessor, we had written the manual for terrestrial mobile LiDAR collection, which we hadn't had at the department before. Okay. And so one of the things that naturally comes out of writing standards is, how do you handle this data? How are we going to evaluate this data? And so we were in the process of looking for non-traditional tools to help us, because some of the traditional tools were good at CAD or good at design, but they didn't handle point clouds and point data very effectively. And so we were looking for a tool that, number one, was effective, and number two, it didn't require the overhead required of a large software product. Sometimes surveying software tries to be everything to all people. Correct, yeah. And we weren't looking for that because, one of the things that's important about the DOT is that we outsource 90 to 95% of all the surveying work that's done. So we're not in-house doing a lot of production. So we don't necessarily need the same tools that we needed in the past or a lot of our consultants use. So we needed a tool that was focused and that would serve the purpose without requiring a lot of extra training and that sort of thing. So during this period, John and Ted and different people at the DOT had kind of, rubbed shoulders at some of the conferences that were going on. And John actually came back to me and said, let's take a look at it. And so we did some research.
What was that?
This would be probably 2014.
Okay. About the time that TopoDOT actually started, it was 2012, and then starting to push it, yeah, definitely.
And we started looking at it as a tool for quality assurance and a tool for extraction, but not something that would take a lot of setup time. It was, I think the niche for us was we wanted to be able to manage data, evaluate what our consultants were giving us,
Yeah.
and then at the same token, if we needed to pull something out, like power poles or something that was collected but maybe wasn't part of the original survey, that we didn't have to, create a contract, send it back out, try to get that stuff collected, delay the project. We could go in and extract that information ourselves. And so for those purposes, it was very much a niche type of product for us.
That's worked very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now you've brought a load of people today to the TopoDOT user conference, TUC 18. So that's a very good thing for us and for you guys. So there's definitely a value in it from each of the districts as well. Are they mainly using that then for quality assurance still? What else are they doing with the product?
Well, we, like I said, most of the projects are outsourced. However, we do have, like any large organization, we have projects that come out of nowhere where information is needed and it's needed quickly. And we don't always have time to set up a contract or work with a consultant to get them on board. So a lot of this internal information, we have crews in the districts that pick this information up. And we use, we purchased 3 scanners, static scanners, for collecting remotely data that we used to get out into the road to collect. And this allowed us to, mainly for safety reasons, allowed us to get out of the road. But these collects are on the Topo lift system. We have 3 of them. And the districts share these scanners amongst themselves with, and of course they have other survey equipment that does a lot of what we do. But when we started getting these static scanners, we started needing the ability to manage and extract LiDAR data ourselves. And while we're not building a lot of roads using our own survey, we do have the need to extract and turn data over quickly. So the districts themselves work with this data all the time. And they also deal with reviewing consultant data that comes in and working with consultants, and also too, estimating projects. If you don't have any experience working with the data on a project, it makes it very difficult to estimate a project and know that you're getting what you pay for. Yeah. So this interaction is very important to the districts, and we try to make it available to the key individuals in each district that work with the data every day and have to manage the data and need to be able to extract the data.
So looking back from before you had TopoDOT to the guys using it now, what would you say is the percentage of time or how much it's increased and helped be more efficient for you guys?
That's a little difficult to quantify.
Right, okay. Yeah.
I would say this, that before TopoDOT, it was very difficult to quality assure and evaluate the data using the tools that we had. They would work, but as you can imagine, they overwhelmed the computers we had at the time, and they would crank for long periods of time. So the efficiency of being able to deal with that much data was probably the biggest benefit, and it certainly saved a lot of time on each project, being able to quickly evaluate the data and look at cross-sections of the information and that sort of thing in a timely fashion. So it certainly saved a time in that respect. But since we've kind of been out of the production for quite some time, mainly we went from not being able to really work with the data to being able to work with the data. And we found that when we were looking at the tools, we felt that for the districts who couldn't devote all their time to managing LiDAR data, they have a lot of other activities and responsibilities. We wanted something that was fairly straightforward, didn't require a lot of overhead. And so basically we went from not really utilizing mobile data to actually embracing it. So we kind of grew up with TopoDOT in that sense.
Yeah. And what do you think of the company and the philosophy around it, the values that they portray?
I think the most impressive thing with any consultant to the department is of course, the support that you get. Certainly, we've embraced products before and suffered from lack of support, and it makes it very difficult to maintain expertise in your organization and to utilize a product completely if you don't get that support. So from that respect, we've been very pleased with the support that we've gotten from TopoDOT. They've been very responsive when we needed information or wanted to look at, say, a tool that would do something slightly different. It's very easy to talk and discuss, and Ted's been very responsive in that respect, and all of the staff have been very good at that.
Yeah, that's great. And what do you think of Tuck?
Tuck's, it's very interesting because it's not like most conferences where you sort of sit and have an hour or so where you're learning something that maybe you didn't see before. The feedback I get, and I don't get to get behind the computer and do a lot of crunching like I would like to. The feedback I get from the districts and why we've supported it like we have is that they get immersed in the actual tools that they're using. Someone doesn't run through it really fast on a projector or a PowerPoint or something. They actually work with real data, work with the tools while they're dealing with it. So when they come out of a conference such as this, they actually have skills that they didn't have or weren't very good at when they came in. And also, too, there's always new tools being developed. So to take advantage of these newer tools in our workflow, it helps to actually have the technical folks that deal with this data, being able to work with it hands-on. It's been very rewarding. I would say the value for the department is that the folks that are here are the ones that are dealing with remote sensing data, point cloud data, and doing quality assurance with the consultants on projects. They're doing estimates of projects. And the value of this conference over others that I've seen is that, and why the districts value it so much, is that when they come to this conference, the technical individuals that work with the data every day, that work with the software every day, sit down and actually work with real-world data on real-world projects with the instructors. They have computers where, they're not just seeing something being done on the screen, but they're actually doing it themselves. So the value of the individuals coming from the districts is that they come away from this conference with new skills or have learned about a new tool that's in the software, and they get a much better appreciation of how they can use that to the advantage of the department, both in time and in quality assurance.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.